Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome to more Beekeeping Basics. So it's late September, it's a fantastic day today, we've got wonderful sunshine again and the bees are really busy again and taking lots of food down in the feeders that we've got. And I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you the different types of feeders that we use and why we prefer to use the large green jumbo feeder, and we'll talk through each of them and then I'll show you one of the feeders in action on a hive. Okay, so what we've got here are two different types of feeder. This type is called a contact feeder. It's a simple pail or a bucket with sugar syrup going into there, and then the lid consists of a standard lid with a piece of wire gauze glued, fitted to the bottom of it. Once the sugar syrup is in, you pop the lid on firmly and then invert it, and once the residual sugar syrup has dripped out, it creates a small vacuum and the bees can then feed from the gauze, and as they feed, so more of the syrup will come out. This one is simply a larger version. This one the smaller one we tend to use on our nukes, our nucleus hives. The larger ones don't fit beneath the lid or the roof, so this is great because it sits nicely and the roof completely covers the nucleus colony, so that's a good one. This one again takes a much larger quantity, but what we then have to do is to use an empty brood box or a couple of empty supers to create a structure around it so that the roof can go flat on the top of it. If you don't have that, then a roof sitting on the top of this is going to wobble about a bit, so you end up having to put a brick or something on top. So that's the contact feeders, and this one is a small rapid feeder, very similar to the green jumbo feeders in design. So there's a hole in the bottom, the bees come up through the centre, you fill this area with sugar syrup. This one takes about 3 to 3.5 pints before it starts to overflow, and this little cup fits over the top, clicks into position so the bees can't come up and fall into the syrup and drown, or in fact when you're topping it up, when you take the lid off, you're actually not in contact with the bees, so it's a great way of feeding the bees without having to disturb the colony. They unfortunately are just too big to go onto our nucleus colonies, which is why we opt for the smaller contact feeder. All of these feeders are available from pretty much all beekeeping suppliers. They come in different sizes, and I'm sure that you'll find one out there that suits. However, our personal favourite, the one that I tend to go to more often than not, is the green jumbo feeder, which I've shown in a couple of other videos. We don't have a spare one available at the moment because they're all on the beehives, so what we're going to do is suit up and go down to one of the colonies and take a look at the jumbo feeder, and probably we'll top that up with some sugar syrup. And what I'll do is I'll fill this little one with sugar syrup and show you how you invert it to prevent lots of sugar syrup from dripping down into the bees and over the comb, probably at the bottom of the hive if you're on an open mesh floor, and that's then going to attract robbing and probably wasps as well. So let's get suited up and we'll go down and have a look at the green jumbo feeder. So I was just about to suit up and I remembered that we also have several frame feeders. So these fit inside the hive. They have a hollow central area which you fill up with sugar syrup. It's important that if you don't have a float, that you put something, some material inside that the bees can cling to, otherwise you'll end up with lots of drowned bees. But this simply fits inside and that will float on the surface of the sugar syrup, allowing the bees to crawl out. And that simply sits in the hive in place of one of the frames, and you can top it up and feed the bees So one of the nice things about these feeders is that you can just simply place it inside the hive and forget about it, top it up every time you go down and inspect until you see that the bees have got sufficient food stores. So that's a really nice way to get some food into the bees without having to put extra equipment on top of the hive. Right, so let's head down and take a look at the jumbo feeder. Okay, so we're here at one of the hives and you can see the green feeder beneath the roof here. So we'll just pop the roof off. One of the benefits is that you don't need to disturb the bees at all. So we've removed the roof without having to smoke the bees. Okay, so if I just lift this lid, here you can see the inside of the feeder. And if I just take the camera off the tripod, here you can see the bees coming up through the central feed hole and going down to the syrup without being at all disturbed by me, the beekeeper. And there are 2 feed holes, and so the bees can get into the feed. Lots of bees can take the feed down and they can move the stores down into the brood box very quickly indeed. Okay, so this is the small contact feeder that we were looking at earlier. So the way that you would fill it is to pour the sugar syrup into the container, and then the important bit is to make sure that the lid is on securely all the way around, because you don't want the sugar syrup leaking out of the lid. And then you simply invert the container over the bucket of syrup until the sugar syrup stops dripping out. That's now created a small vacuum, and none of the syrup will drip out unless the bees start to take the feed. So the bees can feed and they won't get soaked in sugar syrup. It's really important because you don't want the sugar syrup simply to run through the hive and onto the floor below, where you'll encourage robbing and perhaps wasps will start attacking. Well, I hope you found that of use. Please like and share the video if you would, and if you haven't subscribed as yet, please do subscribe. There'll be lots more videos to come. Thanks very much for watching.